Hi, everybody. You're welcome. We're starting a little bit earlier just to let everyone get in because we have some new technology that we're rolling out today. We're also going to be streaming this directly into 3XM Insiders for the first time. 3XM Facebook page. So the team's just getting all that together now, getting into technology. But as you come in, just introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from. If any of you are joining us on Independence Day, I doubt it. I'm sure you have much better things to do on your holiday. But if you are joining us, we welcome you in from America today. For us Europeans, it's not a day's holiday, so we're at work today. So we get started now in a couple of minutes. The team will give me the nod when we're all set up and that we're live and we're ready to go. But today's webinar is all around goal setting. And goal setting has been a particular challenge for me. And I think it's been a challenge for most people if they're honest with themselves. And so in studying all the best research I could find around goal setting, I managed to narrow it down into a few key principles. And I call that the Ways to Go goal setting program. So the Ways to Go is a collection of all other ideas, all brought through and put it into our own little module called Ways to Go. So my tech team have told me that we're all live and we're good to go in Facebook. Welcome all you Facebook watchers too. So let's get started with our webinar. So I think I can share my screen. Is that right, tech team? And get this presentation set up. Oh, tech team, I'm not seeing it, believe it or not. Sorry guys, just bear with us. Keep saying hello to each other in the chat while we sort this out. Seeing camera and everything, but I'm not actually seeing the presentation. Do you want to make me a host? Okay, they're letting me in, really in. So I'm now a host. So let's just see. Sorry about this, folks. As I said, it's our first time to do this new technology piece. Share screen. I just want to make sure then that you guys are seeing my presentation. Are we seeing my presentation? Yeah, okay, so we're good to go. Thanks for bearing with us. So we're good to go, let's go. So welcome everybody if you just joined us now. This webinar is built on the goal setting principles. And as I said a little bit earlier, all through my life, I've struggled with goal setting. And I studied it and always tried to figure out the why. So I've read all the best research I can find on it and narrowed it all down into some key principles. And I took those key principles and came up with the Ways to Go goal setting program. So today I'm going to present that to you. Please put your comments in and whatever you have to say about it. You can either do that on our Facebook feed. You can do it on 3XM Insiders at any time after the webinar, or you can do it within the webinar if you're joining us somewhere in the webinar. So let's get started. So in the agenda, we're going to talk about goal setting. What is goal setting and why is it important to us all? We'll then go through the three-step process that I've talked about, the Ways to Go program. And the first step in that is all about, I call it the setting stage. So it's looking at dreaming big and getting ready and doing a little bit of testing in terms of do the goals make sense and everything else. And then you come to the step 2, which is the planning stage. So that's sort of, I've figured all what my goals are and I think they're right and everything else. And now I'm going to have to try and sort of reorganize and plan and create some tasks, and it's the planning stage before I actually get kick-started. And then the step 3 is the go, where we actually go for it. We get that goal setting done and we get going. Jeff isn't joining us today. I'm sorry about that. That was from a previous webinar that I forgot to take out. Sorry, Jeff, if you're joining us, you're very welcome. And then at the very end, then we'll have questions and answers. So who am I? For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Ronan Ryland, I'm the CEO of 3XM. And I've probably made more mistakes than anyone in the world with regards to business. In fact, if there's a mistake to be made in business, I've made it. But you know, you learn from your failures, you pick yourself up, you ask yourself, why did it not quite work out? You re-energize, you reorganize yourself and you go for it again. And you hope that you won't make the same mistake again. The second key thing with me, and it has always been, is lifelong learning, learning something new. I'm a sponge for knowledge. I love to learn something new. In fact, I only regard a day as successful if I've learned something new. Of course, it's important to do all the academia piece too, and I've done everything from masters to postgrad diplomas in digital marketing, sales management. I even thought I wanted to be an accountant when I started in life and changed direction, but I did do base accountancy, which has always stood to me because it's always good to know the numbers. So my mantras. So I live by 2 mantras. My first one is success equals IQ minus ego plus hard work. And for me, you know, sometimes the ego gets in the way of business. And sometimes people's ego just isn't big enough. But I think if you can be aware of ego, park it when you need to, instead rely on the IQ and the brain, and put plenty of hard work in there. The second one is by Winston Churchill, and many of you probably know Winston Churchill. And I love this saying because when things go wrong, I think about this and I go, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. And that has got me through all my business stuff. It really, I go back to that saying every time and I go, yes, let's just do it again. Let's learn. Let's pick ourselves up, have the courage to continue. So why is goal setting important? Well, the best way to explain this for me is if we think about New Year's resolutions. So every year, I don't know if you're like me, I make a New Year's resolution and I'm carrying a bit of weight. And every year I say, I'm going to lose weight this year. That's my New Year's resolution. And what happens? The next year, I'm either the same weight or I've put on a few pounds. So when you think about goal setting, why it's important, it's not just about the setting of the goals. Yes, you need to set the goals because if you don't, like the guy in this poor boat here, you know, you've no direction. You're relying on the wind or the tide to send you a certain direction. You don't know what direction it's going to be, and you don't know where you want to go. And quite often, if you don't know where you want to go, you end up where you don't want to be. And this guy certainly, with his back turned to it, doesn't want to end up down in that big hole there in the water in the sea, because it's just going to gobble him up and he's gone. So, but if we go back to the New Year's resolution piece, so yes, I set the goal. I say, I want to lose X number of pounds in the next 3 months. You know, I want to get a 6-pack. I know that's hard to believe because I have a lot of work to do to get a 6-pack, but I want to have a 6-pack in 6 months or 8 months' time. But it's merely a wish. And the reason why it's merely a wish is I have this goal that I think is a goal, but I don't put a plan around it. I don't sit down and plan it out. So in the Ways to Go program, we've tried to take all that learning on board and build it into an actual plan. And the Ways to Go piece, as I explained a little bit earlier, breaks into 3 things. So the first set is the ways bit, and that's the dream bit. It's about parking all your insecurities, just dreaming big, just imagining if you could be anybody or anything in the world, what would it be? No limitations, none of that. And then you go to a stage in the Ways piece where we actually, you know, start to test those, whether they're smart goals or not. And then we get to the 2 stage, and the 2 stage is about taking those goals and then setting tasks and smaller goals and planning about how you're going to implement it and how you're going to do it. So if we take the weight example, it might be, well, I have this goal to lose all this weight. So how do I take that and how do I plan around making that happen? What am I going to do? What habits am I going to change to make that happen? And then the final bit is the action piece. So we've got to take action. So we can do all the dreaming and all the goal setting we want. We can do all the planning we want, but they're useless unless we actually get up and get going with it. So let's just talk through the stages and we do them one by one. So the first stage is the ways. And what does W stand for? W stands for your why. We've got to understand our why. The A stands for this dream piece. So this is the piece about audacious goal setting. So we're going to dream big. We're not going to be limited by any fear or any insecurities we have. And we're going to sort of figure out where we want to be in say, 10 years' time. And I recommend for this piece is that on the audacious goal setting piece, we're thinking 10 years in advance. Where will you be in 10 years' time? The Y stands for yoke it down. And I'll explain the yoke a little bit more, but it's basically taking the principle of taking those big goals and then breaking them down into smaller chunks. So when you have your big goal, or your BHAG as a lot of people call it, it might be a big 10-year plan. So it's taking that 10-year plan and then breaking it down into 5-year segment, a 3-year segment, a yearly segment, a monthly, right down to getting down to the detail of a weekly and a daily plan. And in fact, an hourly plan if you can. And then when you've got all that done, it's the smart testing. So you've heard this term before, smart testing. You know, are they specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? Are they realistic? And are they time bound? And do the goals actually pass all that smart test? And when you've done that, you've your why, you've the ways bit done. That's all done, we're sorted, we're ready now to go on to the planning stage. But let's just discuss the ways in individual parts first. So what is your why? So those of you who've been on our webinars before and your why, this theme comes up all the time. And we've talked before about Simon Sinek, who's the guru, and we'll talk about his saying in a couple of moments. But everything you read, it's all there that you've got to know your why. And why you need to know your why, and Simon Sinek is the absolute guru in this. And he has proven and he has analyzed the great companies. And we're not talking about the biggest and best companies. We're talking about the great companies, the companies who survive over time and adapt to change and make things happen. And he claims that the reason why that happens is that people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. But if you don't know what your why is, well, then how are people going to buy what you're trying to sell them? Because you're selling them the what, you're not selling them the why. So you've got to understand your why first. And he's broken the principle down into what he calls his golden circle. And his golden circle is really easy to understand. But at the center of it, you have your why. Why do you exist? And then you have your how. And most people in most organizations know their how. They know how they do things. And they know what they sell. But very few companies and businesses, regardless of their size, understand this why bit. Why do they exist? So this is Simon's golden circle. And in discovering your why, we have a little plan done out as to how you would do that. But before we do that, let me share with you the why for a photographer who I know very, very well. And this is this photographer's why. It's an example of her why. And her why is to make women feel great about themselves by capturing their inner and outer beauty in images that they can treasure forever and will always act as a reminder to them of how beautiful they truly are. Now, do you see how that's different than what a how or a what would be? So she's not talking about her how in that she's a beautiful studio and she's got a Canon wonderful camera with a beautiful lens and the best lighting. You know, she's not saying that, well, what I do is I create images that you can put on your wall and what you're going to do with them. You know, it's much more than that. But everything then can come from this why. So how would you go about, what are the steps if you want to go through this process? And the first step is, if you watch our webinar on our why, you'll see it in much more detail. But it's simply, first of all, look at Simon Sinek's video on TED Talks. And you can see a link here to it. But if you simply Google Simon Sinek and TED Talks, you'll be able to see it's about a 70-minute video, but it's also contained within the webinar. Then you've got to figure out, make a list then of the genres of photography you might offer now. Because once you've discovered your own why, it's also, you've got to understand, well, what's your client's why? Why would your client deal with you within those genres of photography? And how I suggest you get started with that is you list all the results that's important to your client of hiring you as their photographer. So if I want a newborn shoot, I want you to list for me, pretend I'm a woman, I know it's a hard thing to do, pretend I'm a woman because the woman who's going to buy the newborn photography, and make a list of what results are important to me. Why would I actually come to you? And then you insert that into a why statement. So you insert that into a why statement as to why that client will deal with you. And then you take that statement and what do? You ask, but why? So why is that relevant? And it's suggested in best practice that you repeat that until it absolutely resonates with you. And that could take 5, 6 times to actually repeat it and amend it and reflect on it and think about it and then put it all back together. And then if there's someone who you trust and who you know you can rely on their opinion and they're going to take you seriously and all that, share it with somebody. Share your why when you've got it, when it resonates with you, and get their opinion on it. Then when you take on that, then if you think it needs some alteration, alter them again. Then reflect on them, revisit them. And when they're right, they should just roll off your tongue. Your tongue, your why should just, anyone can ask you anytime, even if you've had a few pints, you can still repeat it and say it. That you're unconsciously competent, as they say, within here. It's like driving a car. The first time you drive a car, how do I adjust the gears? And you're not quite sure. But once you learn how to drive a car and you're familiar with your car and all that, you do it second nature. You don't think about it. That's an example of being unconsciously competent. And you need to be unconsciously competent with your why. So we talked about audacious goal setting. So audacious goal setting, why did I pick it? So I picked audacious because audacious means showing a willingness to take surprisingly bold risks. And a lot of us suffer with fear. You know, we don't do something because we're fearful it holds us back. But at this stage of the goal setting, we've got to park that fear. We've got to think big. We've got to be able to dream. So dream, like, what do you want to be in 10 years' time? Park all those constraints and go for, you've probably heard this explanation before of a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. So what I suggest you do is that you think about, in 10 years' time, where will you be? And so we're going to go to 2028. So we're into our time machine. We've moved forward 10 years' time. And you write in the present tense where you are. And the reason why you write in the present tense is they've proven psychology-wise that when you write in the present tense, it's much more real to you. So you start with things that I am, I live, I earn, I holiday or vacation. So it's I in the present, around all those things, you write all those things down. And then you come up with what we call your big, hairy, audacious goal. And a mammoth is the biggest, hairiest creature I know. And can you imagine all those moons ago trying to chase this guy down for a bit of food? You got to figure out how you're going to kill him first. And then you got to figure out how you're going to eat him and how you're going to transport him back to the caves and all that. So the audacious and BHAG leads to this 10-year BHAG. And here's an example of the previous photographer's 10-year BHAG. And you can see it's in the present tense. I make women feel great about themselves by capturing themselves in images that reflect them at their best. We now have $1 million studio, and my partner and I just love our new Caribbean beach house that we visit 6 times a year. So can you see now where this 10-year BHAG, but it's a big, big, big goal, yeah? So we haven't yet figured out, well, how are we going to take that 10-year, where we are in 10 years' time, come back in our time machine and readjust that. So how do we do that? And this is where the why for yoke that BHAG down. So what's a yoke? So you'll see a lady in the picture here on the slide, and she has this wooden piece across her shoulders, and she's carrying water. So it's much easier to carry the water when it's broken down into smaller lots than try to carry one big container that she'd never be able to carry. So that's what a yoke is used for. It's used to spread a load down into smaller pieces. So in the same way, we've got to take that 10-year BHAG and we've got to break it into smaller loads. So I've taken the example here of the 1 million studio. I said in 5 years then I want to be at a 500,000 turnover studio. In 1 year, I want to be at 100,000 studio. And then break that down 1 year then, because even 1 year is too long to plan for. So we take that 1 year and we break it down into a 3-month goal. And I've identified as this photographer that to achieve this 100,000 studio within the year, I need to double my average order value from where it is. And I've got to increase the number of sessions I'm doing per week from 2 to 5. So you can see now that we're starting to get into more specifics, aren't we? We're taking that big 10-year BHAG and we're breaking it down into what I probably have to do over the next 3 months. So now we're ready to smart test the goal. So is this goal smart? It's these goals. And smart testing is it specific? Is it measurable? Can I measure it? Is it attainable? So is this goal that I'm going to achieve over the next 3 months attainable? Is it relevant? So is it relevant to my whole piece? And because I started with the 10-year and broke it all down, I know they're absolutely relevant. If I achieve that, I've achieved the first step in my 10-year BHAG. And is it timely? Yes, and it's tangible. So it passes the SMART test. So let's just go through then the 3 months and just talk about them. So double my average order value from 700 to 1400. It's specific. Yes, it's absolutely specific. I'm taking my average order value and I'm bringing it from 700 to 1400. Is it measurable? Yes, I know whether I get it to 1400 or not after the 3 months. Is it attainable and achievable? It absolutely is, because we have plenty of clients who have more than double their average order value with a print viewing. So it is possible. You just have to figure out the how. Is it relevant? It's absolutely relevant, because I know that if I achieve that within the next 3 months, that I'm on my way to that 100,000 turnover in the first year. And is it timely? It's absolutely timely. It's within a time range of 3 months. And the same with the second one. So increase my sessions from 2 to 5. Is it specific? It is. Is it measurable? It is. Is it attainable? It is. Is it relevant? Yes, it's relevant back to the 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year, the 10-year plan. And is it timely? Yes, I know whether I've achieved or not in the time. So we've now finished the first stage, which is, you know, dreaming big and breaking it down and making it specific and things. And now we're ready to go to the 2. So what does the 2 stand for? Well, the T stands for it's time to break habits. And it's also time to create tasks. So we're all creatures of habits. Human beings by their nature, we all have habits. And nothing will change unless you break the habit. And many of us, I know I do all the time, I fall foul of this great genius's definition of madness. And yes, those of you know I'm mad. But his definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So we will not achieve the 3-month goals until we break our current habits and do things differently. So we've got to figure out a way as to, this is what I'm currently doing. If I do the same thing and I do exactly my lead generation the same way, my selling in the same way, everything, nothing changes there. I put the same time in, the same effort, nothing's going to change. So I have to break some habits. The second part then is, what tasks would I have to do to achieve those 3-month goals? So if I'm going to increase my average order value, double that, and if I'm going to increase the number of shoots I'm going to do per week, I'm going to have to spend more time in marketing, haven't I? So I'm going to have to create, if I don't already have that time, I've got to find a way to create that more time. I've identified that within the genre of photography that I'm targeting, that networking could play a big role in that. That networking could help me generate more of those leads. I may, to create the time, need to outsource something. So I may have to take part of my business to allow me to do more marketing and do more networking and outsource that. Whether that's some initial editing, I just add my magic at the end, or whatever it might be, I've got to try and do that. I may have to change my sales process. So your current sales process just may not deliver that increase in average order value, and you may have to change it and do things completely different. And if you're like me, I'm a creative as well. And most creatives, you know, we're really bad at time management. So we may need to become a better time manager. So we may need to change some habits to make that happen. So let's just talk then about what the O is. So we're at the planning stage. So it's time to break some habits. We've created some high-level tasks, but now we need to organize ourselves around those tasks. So we need to break those tasks into monthly tasks, or 3-month goals into monthly, weekly, and then daily tasks. So that's about getting organized. So we're now starting to get organized and we're starting to do that. So let's just take an example of one of our 3-month goals, which is to increase our sessions from 2 to 5 per week, and figure out, well, what might I need to do to get organized here? So I know I currently convert 1 in 10 leads. So for every 10 leads that I generate, 1 turns into a sale. So if I take that ratio and I need to go from 2 to 5, I now need to go to generate 50 leads. So how am I doing that calculation? So currently, if I'm converting 1 in 10 leads and I'm doing 2 sales sessions per week, I'm generating 20 leads. which is 2 times 10. But now I need to have 5 sessions. So if everything else stays the same, rather than generating 20 leads, I need to generate 50. And your ratios will be different. Everyone's ratios will be different. That doesn't matter. But it's just, they're the principles. So I'm getting down into specifics now to get organized. And we've already identified that how I'm going to do this is I'm going to spend more time on marketing and networking. But how much time am I going to spend on it? And when am I going to do it? So I got to figure out all that to get organized. So I figured out that what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 2.5 hours per week on marketing, and I'm going to attend a relevant networking event every week. So there's no point if you think networking is the way to go and attending it if your prospective clients or people in that networking group can't recommend you to prospective clients. You're wasting your time. It has to be relevant to what you're trying to achieve, what genre you're targeting, the persona of client that you're targeting. So an example of this photographer that we talked about who has those goals, and if they're going to major on the makeover and glamour area, they might join a group, say for, let's take an example of a business group for women entrepreneurs. Yeah, that might be relevant to them. That might be a really relevant networking group for them. Okay, so next then, this is what we're going to do, but how are we going to split our time then over the week? So there's a really important thing about time. And a lot of photographers don't like marketing. They much prefer to be behind the camera or editing or whatever. So the stuff you don't like doing, you should do first. You're bright and breezy, you do it, it's done, and then you do the stuff you like. And by doing it in that way, it means that you're not constantly worrying about, oh, I have to do that thing and I hate doing it and I don't like it. And what happens? You get tired and you get fed up and the day goes on and your energy levels drop and you just don't do it. So if you take what you don't like doing, and if in this case it's marketing, do it early. But we've broken it into then a daily task at 2.5 hours. And we said, right, on a Monday, I'm going to spend 1 hour on marketing. On a Tuesday, a half an hour. On a Wednesday, I'm going to that networking event because it's on a Wednesday morning, first thing, before breakfast. On Thursday, then I have another half hour for marketing, and Friday I have a half hour on marketing. So here we figured out time-wise what we're going to spend. But we haven't got into the specifics of what we're actually going to do. So we've allocated the time, but what are we going to do on that time? Because you don't want to turn up on Monday morning and say, okay, 1 hour of marketing, what am I going to do? And you spend the hour wondering what you're going to do. So you need to absolutely figure out what you're going to do. So that comes down then to taking our daily tasks and breaking it down into what I'm going to do. So on Monday morning, in my time, I'm going to spend a half an hour reviewing the previous week's results. So I'm going to take everything I did last week and see, has it returned what I needed to return? And then I'm going to spend the other half hour planning the activities for the coming week. So I'm going to take the learnings of what worked, what didn't work the previous week, because not everything will work, and I'm going to plan for the next week. Then on Tuesday, because I use Facebook and Instagram, I'm going to do my adverts and posts. And I'm going to plan all those out, have them all ready to go, pre-schedule all my posts so it's all done, so I don't have to worry about posting every single day, and it's all sorted. On Wednesday, I'm going to my Women in Business networking event. I've only started in this group, so I don't know if it's going to work yet, but I'm going to start going to that and try and build my connections. I probably will try and encourage them to come in for headshots first for their professional profiles, and then go on to sell what I really want to sell to them, which is the whole makeover or glamour, depending on what part of the world you're from. Then on Thursday, I'm going to use LinkedIn. So I mentioned a bit earlier at the beginning, Jeff Woods. Jeff Woods is a genius in this area. Future of Marketing is his website. And Jeff is a specialist in how photographers can use LinkedIn. In fact, he's even figured out a way, which I was amazed at when I met him last. He's figured out a way how wedding photographers can use LinkedIn to get weddings. And I went, you're joking. There's no way you can do that. I can see how you can do that on Facebook and Instagram, but how do you do that on LinkedIn? And he's figured out a way to do that. So please do have a look at some of Jeff's stuff. It is worth checking out. And then on Friday, then I'm going to do my blog post. So I know on these days at this time what I'm doing. I'm not turning up on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday wondering, well, I'm here now for my marketing time. What am I going to do? And now that we've finalized our planning stage and we figured out what the tasks are, when we're going to do them, how we're going to do them, what's involved in them, how much time we're giving to them, it's time to get started. So this is the go stage. So this is where we're ready. All the dreaming and planning and big year plans are done. They've all been broken down into the smaller yearly tasks, down to the 3 monthly, down to the weekly and daily tasks. And now we're ready to go. So why do I have sprinters here? So there's a guy, a famous guy called Ted Herman. And Ted Herman's idea is that people ask why was he so successful and what was different about his training regime that made him so great. And he said he takes his training and he was able to break it down into small goals that he calls sprints. So the principle is that you take your monthly, weekly, daily, and you break them into much shorter sprints. So it's about micro speed, macro patience. So when I'm working on something, I'm working flat out all the time. I stop, I do my next task, I work flat out at that, I do my next task. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a quick drink of water. It's important at this stage, there's no procrastination, no overthinking. You've done all that earlier in the process. So this is the go. We're going for it now. There's no mess and there's no holding back. It doesn't mean that we're going to proceed if we don't get any results. We will certainly do that, and that'll come up in the O, but the next O. But we're just going to go. We're going to go for it. And we're going to make those daily and weekly tasks happen. And remember what we said a little bit earlier, you are going to have to create new habits and break old habits to make this happen. As Einstein said, if you do the same thing over and over again, nothing's going to change. And then the O is about reviews. So there's no point in going and implementing if it doesn't work. You've got to review, is the stuff that you're doing working? And a lot of people wait until the end of the year to review. I think it's sort of built into us, this New Year's resolution thing. So why do we do a New Year's resolution in January and then don't think about doing one in February, March, April, May, June, July? I know that's because the year starts in January, but why? So we should really be reviewing our goals on a regular basis and then creating new goals if we need to. So I suggest that you review your hourly tasks half daily, or at least daily. So what do you mean by that? Well, as I said to you, I'm very unorganized, and I only started doing this in the last couple of months, but I have a really simple task list where I break my days into half-an-hour slots, and I plan the day before what I'm going to do in those half-hour slots, and I have a week ahead at a time. So I know that, so for example, in my network, if I use the photographer in the networking meeting, I know that at that time on a Wednesday, that's pre-filled in. But it also allows me to review, well, what did I actually do? And what did I get done? And what did I not get done? And in another way, it actually allows you to see on a daily basis, how much time did I spend on editing? You're joking. I spent 6 hours on editing. Why did I do that? So it just brings it to light because it's measurable. You're measuring it and you're reviewing it. And what I have here is, at the end of each day, I have, what could I have done better today? So it's just a reflection on what I did that day and what I might have done better. You then can reflect on your weekly, your daily tasks at the end of the week. So at the end of the week, I can look at what I did each of every day for the week and then reflect on that and see what I might do. And then you take your weekly tasks and you link them back to your monthly and you see, where am I with regards to the monthly tasks that I set out? So have I achieved the average order value of doubling it? Have I achieved a number of sessions? Have they gone from 2 to 5? And then every 3 months, review your quarterly targets. So yes, I haven't quite made where I wanted to be in 3 months. So let's just amend the next 3 months and break all that down then again into monthly, weekly, and daily tasks. Or I've overachieved it. Brilliant, great start. I've learned a lot. So I can actually increase the next 3 month target a little bit better. And you know what? I'm not going to have 100,000 business at the end of the year. I'm going to have 120,000 if I keep going like this. So is that starting to make sense now, how this review process is really, really important? So you're not waiting until 10 years' time to wake up and say, oh, do you remember that 10-year BHAG I had? I haven't even achieved 2% of it or 5%, you know? So it's really important that we do that. And you're not going to get it right first time. It's not always going to work out. You're going to fall off the horse. You're going to, you know, if you go back to my losing weight thing, I'm going to have a bad day. I'm going to eat all the stuff I shouldn't have. I'm not going to have gone to the gym on the days I should have. But you reflect, you don't give up, you pick yourself up, you learn from it, you ask, why did it happen? You try and take away the reasons why, you fix it and you get going again. So never give up. And I think that's, if I reflect on my yearly goal setting piece for my New Year's resolution of losing weight, once I fall off, I find it hard to get back on the track. So I'm going to try and adopt this Ways to Go program into that target. And I'm going to set my New Year's resolution on the 1st of August this year, after my holidays. And I'm going to see if this works for, and you might see me with a 6-pack in the future. So before we finish, I hope you've enjoyed this Ways to Go. We've actually started, there's a facility here within the webinar to put your hands up. So we've actually started to develop a workbook out to help with this Ways to Go program. And we've only sort of sketched it out. We haven't built it yet. But hands up to anyone who thinks that we should do that you would like us to make available to you a workbook, a Ways to Go workbook. So I'll just wait for the tech team then to tell me that all the votes are in. So if you would like us to put some time and effort into developing a Ways to Go workbook to help to take what we've done today and develop it out into a workbook that you can have in your desk and you can follow and all that, would you like us to do that for you? Okay. So there's a quarter of you. So there's 75% of you who don't want to. But if you do, just put in the comments on the Facebook, yeah, I'd like one. Yeah, because there'll be some of you watching this later, so if you would like it. So before we finish, we create a whole lot of content. And it goes back to our why. So our why is we exist to help photographers worldwide create better businesses. And that's our why. And our hows and what's come out of that. So one of our hows is putting on this education and this stuff, is that it's our way to help you create better businesses, because our business can only be as good as your business. So it helps us achieve our why, but that's why we exist. We want all you guys to have better businesses. So on our content, we have 2 ebooks. We have the Art of Pricing ebook, and we've How to Increase Your Sales. And we have a whole series of webinars too. And of course, we also have our 3XM Insiders group that I'll talk about in just a moment. Before I do that, for those of you who ever want to get started with any of our products, we would like to share in that investment. And how we do that is we give 25% off studio samples. So a studio sample looks like a live product all the time. We do engrave on the base studio sample because it's just for display. But the code LOVEIT, the coupon code LOVEIT, will get you 25% off any product. So you just build it in TED like you would any of our other products. And in the checkout, you just put in LOVEIT and it'll reduce it by 25%. For those of you who are already existing customers, we thank you for your business. But not only do we thank you for watching this webinar and putting up with me for the last little bit of time, the code WEBPPP, that's WEBPPP, it's valid for 24 hours, but it'll get you 15% off a live order. So thank you for listening to me. And as a small thank you, there's that coupon code if you're ready to buy something live from us. And I mentioned a little bit earlier our exclusive 3XM Insiders closed group. So we're better together. And that's our tagline within our group. And we can all learn from each other. We're for photographers who are serious about business. All the content within this group is built around the areas of business, marketing, and sales. And we do post nearly every day a little tip of our own, but it's more about how you interact with those tips and you sharing your experiences in business and sales and marketing. Or if you have any questions on that, there's a great lot of knowledge in there, not just from 3XM, but from all the great photographers who are members of it, who will come back with some ideas. And in fact, there's a debate every now and again about, well, I have a slightly different angle on that. But that's about all learning from each other. None of us are fully right all the time. We can all learn and understand a different perspective and see how all that fits together. So lastly, all I want to do is thank you very much for your time for joining us today. We have a really, really special webinar in 2 weeks' time. We're doing it slightly earlier, but we have the very special photographer, who's one of our ambassadors, Paulina Dushman. And Paulina will be joining us with an interview. The whole webinar will be just an interview with her. And for those of you who don't know Paulina, she's won a massive amount of awards over the last couple of years in her speciality genre, which is fine art photography. So Paulina's story is fascinating. I went to dinner one evening with Paulina and we just talked for hours and hours and hours. Her story is fascinating. How she went about her setting up her photography business, how it came about is fascinating. She's not a second generation photographer. She literally only started photographing 4 years ago and she's winning international world awards already. So lastly, thank you for your time. I sincerely thank you for your business, because without your business, we couldn't put on events like this. So thank you. Join us on 3XM Insiders. We'll see you on the inside and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much.